culture.
I mean, we should address, the topic of today is not the passport bros thing, but
Right.
But we should talk a couple of things, clarify a few points I think that people have misconstrued about the subject. I think, first of all, like the racism, I think that's a pretty ridiculous thing, but obviously we're not saying that people or women in other countries are lesser or less intelligent.
Not in any way.
Right.
We're strictly talking about women who are repressed in whatever country it is and in whatever situation that might make her repressed. Some countries, it's the actual laws that make women repressed. In some countries, it's just the culture or certain things like that make women repressed. And those are typically the women that these men are going after.
Right, exactly.
Because they haven't worked on themselves. They want somebody that will just not hold them accountable. And that was the whole point of the passport bros. And we're not talking about guys who are in the military or guys who are just traveling and they meet a woman. Like, this is specifically about passport bros, what we were talking about.
Yeah.
The guys who hate American women.
Right.
And then want to go find a certain type of woman. And then some of the men, too, are trying to be like, oh, well, like, there's women who work and have good work ethic and do things like that in other countries. We're also not really talking about those women because to a passport bro, that's not the type of woman they're looking for. They're not looking for a woman that has similar sort of attributes that an American woman would have, like working and, focusing on her career and things like that. They're looking for the more traditional woman, which is what they say. So a lot of the guys in those comments were trying to manipulate what we were saying.
Exactly.
Again, they were going off of the clips mostly. A lot of these people...
you got to watch the full episode.
Yeah, they don't watch the full thing. So they're going based off clips and then they're throwing all these accusations out. But
yeah. And it's like, there's going to be women in a lot of those countries where they are legit running scams on the guys that are coming in trying to...
Right, which is not all women.
But it's not all of them there.
But American women can do the same thing. And like... any woman anywhere can do the same thing.
Right.
That's what guys call gold diggers, right? Like, that's essentially like a scam, like using somebody for something.
Yeah.
Like, just to think that you can go somewhere and all your problems will be solved is the problem with the passport bros.
Yeah, it's trying to get it's like this. It's like, look, if you're a baseball player and you couldn't make it in the major leagues or whatever, and then you went and joined a little league team, right? And you're like, see how good I am?
Best.
Okay.
You're like knocking 5-year-olds out of the way.
Yeah. It's like, okay, yes, you're winning the games, but you're playing in the little leagues now. So that's kind of what it looks like to me when you're going to an undeveloped country, right? An undeveloped country, right? Where there's not as much opportunity, where it's the other equivalent I was going to say is, it's like if you're a billionaire in the United States, right? You're going to have a lot of women that will suddenly be very feminine to you, right? We'll pretend to be they're going to cook for you and clean. They're going to do whatever you want, right?
Right.
Are they really interested in you? Or are they interested in the opportunity to be with a billionaire? You go over there, you're American, you make decent money, whatever. You go over to an undeveloped country, a third world country, it's like being a billionaire there. And yeah, when you say, oh yeah, the women are so much better there. No, they're better to you.
Right.
Because you're like a billionaire. You know what I mean? That's the same thing. It's you're playing T-ball, okay? And
these women want good men too.
Right, yeah.
And a lot of these guys go over there and they can pretend to be a certain type of guy.
Yeah.
They can pretend to be a good guy for like a week and then they get married really fast or whatever they're trying to do. Yeah. And then the situation isn't necessarily the same. And just like in the full episode, like they don't usually have that intimacy and that connection that a real relationship has because he didn't have those intentions from the beginning. No man that I've seen that supports passport bros is like, I want a woman who loves me and desires me and treats me like a king. It's always how he is always describing how she has to act.
Right, right.
And that's what he's looking for. And so
Right.
it's not about her.
Right.
It's not about loving somebody. It's
Right.
not about being in love. It's
Right.
about having these certain characteristics.
Right.
She has to be traditional, and she has to not talk back, and she has to be, this, and this. Not once do they mention she has to like me for me.
Right,
She
exactly.
has to love me.
Right.
And that's the whole issue.
Yeah, yeah, and there's not to get too far into it, but there's two ways as a man to get a woman to be submissive to you and respectful and more feminine, and one of them is by being a man who earns that because of who you are
And shows her he can do that.
Right. And the other way is through arbitrage, where you're going somewhere where you present such a good opportunity. You see what I'm saying? It's not because of.
Well, one's sustainable and one's not.
Yeah,
Because
exactly.
how long can you act like the
Right.
man versus actually being the man?
And those guys are even admit, they're like, all right, because we're like, oh, well, what happens when you bring her back to the U.S.? And like, oh, we're not going to do that.
Right.
Like, yeah, because you know what will happen. Because you know that you're running a
it's
sham
not
here. It's a sham.
it's not a
It's
legitimate
not-
relationship.
Right.
It's more of an arrangement. And we kind of talked about this like at home. We didn't talk about it on the episode, that it's not even like an arranged marriage, because in an arranged marriage both people are working on it
Right.
and they're trying to make it work, even if they got set up and they didn't know anything about each other.
Yeah.
They're working towards love. They're
Yeah.
working towards building an actual relationship, even though they didn't start out like finding each other and having that instant connection. Whereas with the passport bros, again, I've never seen any of them talk
Right.
about the connection, talk about building the love.
Right.
And even in one of the comments on the YouTube video, it was just about, oh, well, my friend went and got a wife from the Philippines and she works really hard and now she makes more than him. There was nothing about
Yeah.
love.
Right.
They might still be together, but there was nothing about love. There's nothing about, how well their relationship has developed and
Right.
how much respect and love they have for each other.
Yeah,
And
none
they're the
of that.
love of each other's lives. Like
Right.
none of that. There's
Yeah.
never any of that.
No, and again, I don't disagree with the guy. I think I told you, I think Filipino people are really great. There's a lot of really good, hardworking. It's a good culture. If I hire someone, I usually hire people from the Philippines because of that work ethic and just how they are. But that doesn't mean that you still can not have the other stuff that you're like. You still
Right.
need to have the relationship and again, the biggest thing I always tell guys all the time is it doesn't matter what you do, it matters why you do it. Nothing is wrong
Right.
by
Your
doing
intention
it,
makes
why
it.
you do a thing. And so it's like, look, because I have coaching clients of mine that have gone overseas, and not for the purpose of because they couldn't get laid here, so they have to go there, but because it's a better opportunity for them, starting a business, it's cheaper cost of living and whatnot. And then they have found that, oh, wow, I'm actually have a lot more dating success here, and the women treat me better. And like, I'll admit that is the case in that, but the difference there, right, is that these guys are doing it not because they can't get laid in the U.S.
Right. Or they hate American women.
They're doing it because
Because they went for a different opportunity
Exactly.
and now they're there, so now they're dating.
Right.
That's
Right,
again,
and
that's not the
perfectly-
same. That's not
exactly.
a passport.
You're not
bro.
running away from something. You're not being a victim. You're not working on yourself. It's like, if you're like, oh, I can't, I'm not good enough here, so I'm going to go over there.
Right.
That's you're just running away from your problem.
Right.
And that's the biggest issue that I have, is because it's the victim mindset. Like,
Right.
fix your problem. And then if you're like, if you legit tell me, hey, look, I have success dating in the U.S. Women are great, but I prefer women that are Asian. Like, I prefer the look. I prefer, and so
That's
that's
what
why I
I'm
went over to
attracted
date.
to.
Yeah, and I'm going over there to date them, and I find that I just have better compatibility. Okay, fine. I'm not gonna. Why am I gonna complain about
That's
that?
still not
fine.
a passport bro.
Right,
Like
exactly.
everybody
Yeah.
knows what we mean by
Right.
passport bro,
Right.
but they're trying to manipulate the situation.
Right.
That's the whole thing, because we're not talking about those instances.
Right.
And I think
So-
we made it pretty clear.
Yeah,
But
so
if we
just
haven't,
now
then
we've-
this part definitely makes it clear. But yeah, it's just not the same, and there is a difference.
Yeah.
And men know there's a difference. The comment that you read is a passport bro. It's that disdain for American women and the issues that are very obvious when you read that comment, what this man has. And instead of working on himself and trying to figure out where he might have some healing that he needs to do, he's going to go and just try to put a Band-Aid over it with some woman from another country.
And what these guys need to realize, I think, too, is that, like, I understand the problem with Western women, with Western culture, with Western society. Let's make it more broad instead of calling out women, because that same disease that infects Western women infects Western men in a different way. And this is what we see from it. So it's like you're looking at these women and you're calling out, they're on OnlyFans, they're showing their butt on Instagram, they're, you know, all the things that they're doing, right? Partying and not caring, and, you know, all this. I know what it is, and the wokeness and all. Believe me, I'm not for all that stuff. I get it, I understand it, but you're not realizing that on the flip side, right? If we look at that same poison. That same poison is the same poison that you're ingesting in a different way. It's just you're not putting your butt on OnlyFans as a man, but you're becoming angry. You're becoming
and then women don't want anything to do with you, so they're doing everything else to try to not have to deal with men like that.
Exactly. Yeah. Selfish, 50-50 man. All of I could list the whole thing, and we will in this episode. Better than